Let me pick up the book because I promised to read it. Let me give you 3 steps, everybody. We're going to pick up the book at step 1 on how you create new beliefs. Okay, you ready? You're going to get 2 videos for the price of 1. First, I explain why mantras are bullshit. That's basically page 91, 90 through 91 in this book. Now I'm going to teach you from page 92 to 99, the 3 steps to creating new beliefs. Okay, you ready, everybody? There are 3 steps to creating new beliefs. You're going to love this. Obviously, you can use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that I created to interrupt any thoughts. How many of you would love to create new beliefs about yourself? Okay, we're moving on from mantras and affirmations and why most mantras and affirmations are bullshit. And it's believable. And align your actions with that and continue to repeat it throughout the day. A believable mantra, something a little bit smaller, is going to create momentum, belief, and confidence in self. It's a way to buoy yourself when you're bobbing up and down in life. Now we're going to move on, and I want to teach you how to create new beliefs. Right now, before I teach you the 3 steps, what is a new belief that you want to have in your life, everybody? What's a new belief that you want to have? I'll tell you a belief that I'm struggling with. This is going to sound kind of crazy. Chris and I are in the middle of building this amazing house in Vermont. And our son is going to high school up there. And I'm sitting in our house outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I have been alone here for the last 6 months because I've been coming back and forth because we're under construction in order to get work done. And nobody's here. It's like me and our cat, Mr. Noodle, and it's really lonely. But I have lived in this house, everybody, for 24 years. And the belief that I am wanting to create is that it is time to close the door, to start a new chapter, to make Southern Vermont more of my full-time place, and to rent an apartment in downtown Boston. And I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling with that because I've lived in this house for 24 years. This is where we raised our children. 2 of them have gone and left, and our son is now at the public high school in Vermont. And I'm having a really hard time letting go. I'm waking up every morning. I'm having these nightmares that we're going to sell the house. And then 2 years from now, I'm going to be driving by, stalking the new owners and crying because I regret selling the house. That I'm going to get up to Vermont and I'm not going to like to be up there all the time. And I'm going to wish I had not sold our house, that I'm going to get down to Boston and be in an apartment. I haven't lived in an apartment in 27 years and I'm going to hate that. And so I want to create a new belief that it's going to be okay. And in fact, that it's not only going to be okay, this new chapter, but that it's actually going to be amazing. It's going to be the best thing that I've ever done. Now, do I know if that belief is true? No. And in fact, I have so much fear about selling the house that we raised our kids in and starting this whole new chapter. I'm afraid I'm not going to like it. I'm going through the same thing that you probably are going through right now, that my fears have like a stranglehold on me. But I so desperately want to believe this. There's a part of me that can just feel that it is necessary. There's a part of me that feels like a ghost in my old chapter as I'm walking around this house. Now, here's a funny data point. My parents still live in the house that I grew up in. So my parents are living in a house that has 4 bedrooms and no kids are there. And they've been there ever since I left. My God, I left when I was 18. How old is that? 33 years ago?
Yeah.
So I have never had the experience of having to leave a family home. And it is just like right here. And I'm fighting with myself about it. So do you relate to this story, everybody? That there's something that you want to believe. There's some change that you want to make. There's something that you're called toward, but you're just scared. And it's your old beliefs that I'm going to regret this, or this is going to be a mistake, or what if this doesn't work out, or what if this is the worst thing I could have ever done, or what if that, right? And so this is where I am. And I want you to think about what's some change that you want to make in your life and the belief that you need to change in order to really lift yourself up and support yourself through the process of changing. The belief that I want to have is that this next chapter is going to be the best chapter of my life, and that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. That really, it's not about a house, everybody. It's about the people that are in the house. And now that I'm here alone, boy, is that true. But I'm so scared to let go. All right. And you know what I love? You guys are so cute. Everybody's trying to solve this problem. Just rent it out. Then you can keep it. Right? You're going to be okay, Mel. No problem. Mel, just rent an apartment. Use this as the production studio. Like, you love that you guys are problem solving. It's true, I could rent it out. But I feel like there's something bigger here. You know, everybody, where you just know it's kind of time to let go, where it's let go of a relationship or a place or a friendship or a career, that there's some big move, right? And yeah, I think I'm taking my time with leaving a family home because it is a big decision. 24 years in one place is a big thing. Having roots somewhere is a big thing. And so my belief and the belief that I want to change is about okayness. It's about the permission to take a risk and to dream and to trust myself. Because, you know, when I close my eyes, just like when you close your eyes and think about this change that you want to make, you know what's right for you. Yes, Faye says it feels like a part of you will die if you leave. The truth is, a part of me does need to die because I'm no longer in that chapter of my life and I'm holding on to it, right? So what are the 3 steps to changing a belief? And now that you have the belief that you want to change, what is the belief that you want to change, everybody? Describe in the comments what's holding you back. What's holding me back is I may regret this decision. And once I sell the house, there's no going back. I want to believe I'm going to be okay no matter what I decide. That I need to trust my heart in this one. That in order to open the door and step into this next chapter of my life, I got to let go of the handle and close the door on this past one. I'm not getting choked up. I just have cat hair that just flew in my mouth. So hold on a second. Here, now I'm going to sneeze. This is how you know it's live, everybody. So step number 1, you're going to love this tool. And I write about this in the High Five Habit. If you have not bought a copy of this book, and you can, please do. It's extraordinary. It's in 41 languages already. It only came out in September. And it's changing people's lives around the world. And we're on page 92, everybody. But step 1 is a simple tool. If you catch the negative thought, like my thought sounds like, fuck, 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 fuck. What if I sell this? What if I never see my kids again? What if nobody visits me in Vermont? What if I fucking regret selling this house? What if I get to a goddamn apartment building in Boston and the people above me are having sex every night really loud and there's a dog next door and I hate the building and somebody's cooking something every day and it smells like shit and I can't get out and I hate my street and I don't know where to park. Like, this is how crazy my mind is starting to go around this chapter and this change I want to make. Okay? So 5-second rule. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Interrupt that shit. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, I'm not thinking about that. Say, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about that is literally a karate chop to the craziness in your head. Every single morning when I wake up in our bedroom here in Boston, I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I selling? I just go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that right now. Step number 2, I talk about this on page 94 of the book. Step number 2, note to self. Let me explain what that means. Okay. That's it. Becca, do you have, could you grab me a Post-it note so I can show these guys? Note to self. You already know, oh, here's one. Oh no, these are not sticky. Oh, fabulous. Look at that. Okay. You guys want to see something funny? These are my Post-it notes. This one says busy as fuck. I love this one. Hey Mel, keep up the okay work. Isn't that awesome? Keep up the okay work, Mel. There you go. Little boost from Mel Robbins to Mel Robbins. Step number 2. Post-it note. Write a note to self. Here's what I would write. You ready? You're going to write a believable mantra or affirmation. This is where believable mantras come in. You ready? When you have a negative belief that starts haunting you or worries, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, interrupt it with a 5-second rule and then karate chop it in half by saying, I'm not thinking about that. Because the fact is, you don't need to think about that. Most of the things that you're worried about right now, a month from now, you're not going to be even worried about it, okay? Most of the things. So when you catch yourself worrying or trashing yourself or ruminating, use the 5-second rule, take a 5-second moment of control by counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then karate chop that shit in half by saying, I'm not thinking about that. If this is a chronic belief that you want to now insert to teach your brain, I want you to use a visual cue. This says, trust your heart. It knows. You will be okay. Notice I didn't say, sell the damn house, you're going to be fine. That would actually scare me. Notice I didn't say, stop being a chicken shit. That would probably make me nervous. This is believable. Trust your heart. It knows. And you will be okay makes me feel okay. And having this note to self, which is basically a believable mantra, that is what I'm going to use as the 3rd step. So step 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5-second moment of control. Step 2, karate chop that shitty thought with, I'm not thinking about that. Step number 3, use a visual trigger in a place you're going to see it. I like to put it on my bathroom mirror. I like to put it on my laptop. I sometimes put them on the back of my phone. You can take a photo of this and make it your screen saver on your phone so you see your own writing in an unexpected place. And this keeps this new belief front and center. Now remember, the belief needs to be something within reach. How many of you believe this statement, trust your heart? Right? Yeah, of course you do. I think your heart often knows the answer, and sometimes it just takes your mind a little while to catch up. And how many of you believe that this is true? You will be okay. You may not be okay right now, but you will be okay. Like all the difficult decisions and all the scary things that have happened to you, this moment too, this decision too, it's going to pass and you're going to be okay because you've always been okay. So now let's go and see what else. Now, here's the thing. Step number 4. This is everything that I'm always teaching you. Step number 4, act like the person you want to become. Act like the person you want to become. What does that mean? What that means is if I want to be the kind of person that trusts my heart, that knows that I'm going to be okay, what does that kind of person do, everybody? What does the person who trusts themselves and who knows that they're going to be okay do? Can you think of some actions that that kind of person takes? I know some actions immediately. That kind of person always journals, right, about what's in their heart. That kind of person is kind to themselves. That kind of person takes their time and is patient with themselves. And that kind of person is doing the work to support themselves. That kind of person is telling themselves that they're going to be okay. And so this last piece, number 4, act like the person that you want to become. This part's critical, and this is why most mantras and affirmations don't work, because just saying something isn't enough. The belief becomes real when you start taking actions that are aligned with the new belief. The new belief becomes real. The new belief becomes encoded in your brain, in your nervous system, in your neural pathways, in your habits, in your systems, in the way you talk to yourself. Your new belief becomes real when you take actions that are aligned with the new belief. I did not make this up. This is an entire field of study called behavioral activation therapy. Absolutely everything that I teach you is grounded in behavioral activation therapy. I am trying to make you understand that before you feel like the person you want to become, you need to start acting like the person you want to become. Before you feel ready to go to the gym for the first time in a year, you need to push yourself. Use the 5-second rule. Take a 5-second moment of control. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You need to push yourself to act like a person now that has already got a habit of going to the gym. That's how your belief that I deserve to be healthy and I can figure out how to do it, that's how your belief goes from just a statement that you say to a 5-second moment of control. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take the action and act like that person. Go to the gym. For those of you that want to write, for those of you that want to grow your business, ask yourself, what does a person that is a successful writer do every single day? They write. Before you feel like a writer, you need to make yourself take actions that a writer takes. So that as you stand and you start to say, I can figure out how to write a book. Over time, I could write a book. But then if you leave the bathroom after saying that to yourself, you now need to push yourself to sit your ass in a chair and do what a writer does, which is write about 500 pages of horse shit before you have anything worthy of sharing with somebody else. If you struggle with growing your business, I guarantee you, you're not doing the work that would grow your business. You're thinking about all the reasons why you can't. We need to invert this, everybody. You need to start saying, I am capable of figuring out how to grow my business. I am capable of pushing through the fear and picking up the phone and selling. I am able to figure this out. And then you need to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take the actions before you're motivated, before you're ready, before, like, when you're afraid, you can still take the action. When you're hesitating, you can still take action. When you don't feel ready, you can still take the action. Action is the only way you're going to change your life. And by the way, action is necessary. You have to decide what you want to believe, and then you got to do the really hard work to push yourself to take the action before you're ready. That's the only way that you will change how you think about yourself, how you think about your life, how you think about your future. By deciding what you want and pushing yourself to take action 5 seconds at a time when you're scared, when you're anxious, when you're not feeling ready. That's how you change anything. And that's how you put it all together. Now on page 99, you're going to see a photograph of a woman who took these 4 steps, everybody. She started interrupting the negative bullshit in her mind. She started saying, I'm not thinking about that. She created all of these notes to self that are right there so she sees them every single day, the believable things that you're improving every day. That's right, you are. I'm proud of you. These are things that you can believe. And then, more importantly, she is getting up every damn day and she is high-fiving herself in the mirror and she is slowly but surely doing the work to change how she feels about herself. So, in summary, here's the things I want you to do. Number 1, and I'm on page 100. Never leave a bathroom without high-fiving yourself in the mirror. Never leave a bathroom without high-fiving that person you see in the mirror. Because the high-five action takes programming in your mind, overrides negative self-talk, and aims all the positive programming associated with a high-five right back at your face and your identity. Number 2, if you have not taken the High Five Challenge, highfivechallenge.com, get your ass in the High Five Challenge. It is a free 5-day challenge that I lead, 5 video trainings. It is hosted by my friends at Growth Day. I've arranged for you to be able to be on the app for free. When you are done with the High Five Challenge, you can either join Growth Day, but you don't have to. You get the challenge for free. Once the 5 days is over, just make sure you get into our Facebook group. Our Facebook group is, what is it, High Five Crew?
Yes.
So can they search for High Five Crew?
Yes.
So you can just search for High Five Crew. We'll put a link in the comments below to High Five Crew, everybody. And that's it. Use the 4 steps I just gave you to identify the negative beliefs and to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, interrupt them, karate chop them with, I'm not thinking about that. Make a note to self of what you actually want to start to believe. And then, most importantly, use the 5-second rule. Use the high five habit and push yourself to take the actions, the little actions, everybody, that change the entire trajectory of your life. That's how you change, period. 1 step at a time, 1 day at a time, 1 5-second moment of control at a time. Today's lesson is very short, and it is entitled, Think This, Not That. Yesterday and the past couple days, we have been building on the topic of how you become a deliberate thinker. You have already learned that there are 2 modes in your brain. There's autopilot and the things that you default to, and then there is your ability to deliberately choose what you are going to think about. And when you start to realize and embrace the fact that being a deliberate thinker is a skill, and it is one that I want you to master, and it's one that I want you to practice. Because doing a mindset reset, it's not an event, it's a process. And it's a process that you're going to do over and over and over again. Because the negative and limiting beliefs that you have that are already set to your default, those are encoded in the default network in your brain. And so it's going to be a process that you need to repeat. The second you catch yourself thinking something that is negative or is a limiting belief or is something that was stuck in your mind from somebody in your past, the second you catch yourself defaulting to that, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're going to switch gears and you are going to think about something deliberate. And so yesterday, your assignment was to notice all day long when your mind was drifting to those default negative thoughts. And what I wanted you to do is I wanted you to write down what are the default negative thoughts that you had throughout your day. And many of you were startled to discover just how often you're thinking really nasty things about yourself. You were bummed and a little bit sad to realize, holy cow, I can't believe how often I tell myself I'm not good enough. I can't believe how often I tell myself that my ideas aren't good and I shut myself up. And there were just as many of you that were liberated when you started to realize, wait a minute, this isn't the voice of God talking to me. This is some programming that's set on default. I don't have to live my life and I don't have to have a future where I constantly say things that are negative to myself. This is the most miraculous thing that I've ever heard. And so what I want you to do in the comments is I want you to write what was the limiting belief or the negative thing that kept coming up. Because there were a lot of themes. Christine Nichols said that her limiting belief is that she believes she's a quitter. She believes she can't finish anything. And she started to see examples of it over and over and over again. And what she also started to realize is, holy cow, it's a lie. There's lots of things that I've finished in my life, but if I continue to have the limiting belief that I'm a quitter, if I look out to the future, I will be giving myself permission to not go for harder things. I will give myself permission to quit. A lot of the common beliefs that we heard was that I'm too old. How many of you feel like you're too old to get the things that you want in your life? That is super common. So if you think I'm too old to do this, if you think I've run out of time, if you think, who am I at the age that I am or as young as I am to think that I could do this thing, first of all, you're wrong. And secondly, that's a limiting belief that is stopping you. It's a default mode that we need to get you out of. Huge one for you all was, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough when it comes to other people. I'm not as good as other people. And let me tell you something. This is an epidemic, feeling like you're not good enough, because way too many of us spend our days comparing our imperfect lives to perfect strangers on the internet. And so the feeling like you're not good enough, you're not measuring up, that there's some sort of imaginary race that you're running against the rest of humanity, and that by now, at this point in your life, you're supposed to be at a certain place. And how do you know that? Because every time you look on social media, there are hundreds of people in your face that seem to be at the place that you thought you would be. And so that just reinforces it. And oh my God, the default network is getting stronger. If that's how you feel, you're not alone. That was the single biggest one that we noticed in all of your comments from all over the world. I am not good enough. And we heard loud and clear that you got it from your mom, or you got it from your dad, or you got it from some horrible person that you were in a relationship with. And the problem is you started to believe it, and it got encoded in the default network. So now that you've seen it, good job. You can't get rid of the default until you actually spot it. And now that you've seen it, I want you to realize for the rest of your life, you have a job. And your job is to make sure that when that default network kicks back up and you start to murmur that you're too old, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, that is a moment where you have got to do a mindset reset. And the way that you're going to do it, because you're learning that there's two modes of your brain: the default, I'm not good enough, and the deliberate, oh yeah, I can try, is we're going to teach you that you can think this, not that. That whenever this default mode comes up of I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not enough, whatever enough is, that you can spot it as the default and you can get deliberate and you can say something different. In the body of this broadcast, on Facebook, on YouTube. Where else are we putting this?
Twitter.
On Twitter. Although it won't be on Twitter, the copy. But in the email that we're about to send you with links to this video, and on YouTube and on Facebook, we are going to give you a very long description of alternatives on how you think this, not that. And we're going to give you some things that you can play around with to insert to start to build a deliberate network. And if you don't like these, no problem. Make something up that you really like. But the point is that if you don't get deliberate, you will be stuck with the default mode of thinking. And the way that you reprogram your default mode of thinking so that the default becomes positive and the default becomes courageous and the default becomes loving is, first you catch the negative default, and second, you direct it to something deliberate. So instead of thinking, no one likes me, this is mine because I think I'm a bad person. No one likes me. What I want you to think instead is the right people love me. That's pretty powerful. That's really powerful for me. I constantly remind myself that the right people love me, that the right people are in my life. Instead of saying, oh, nobody likes me or I'm not part of that group, I remind myself that the right people, the people I need, they're the ones that are in my life right now. If you're somebody who says, I'm too old, here's what I want you to say: I have plenty of time. Or you could say, I have so much experience, I'm definitely going to succeed. If you say, I'm too young, then say anything you want, from I have plenty of time to learn what I need to learn, to being young is an advantage, to whatever it is. The point that I'm trying to make is, if your default is negative, I don't want you to think that. I want you to catch it when you do, and then I want you to think this, something positive. If you're constantly thinking, I'm behind, you look at social media and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm losing the race of life. Then I want you to think, I'm on my own timeline. It's not I'm behind, it's I'm doing things in my own time. Another one you could say if you say I'm behind is I'm exactly where I need to be. One of the big things that I always say is that you never move to the next level of your life until you learn the lesson in this one. Instead of thinking I'm not smart enough, Instead of thinking I'm not smart enough, I want you to think, if I put in the work, I can do anything. Instead of thinking I'm not smart enough, say, hey, if I put in the work, I can learn anything. If I put in the work, I can master anything. If I put in the work, I can build anything. It's not about smarts. It's about the effort that I put in. That's another thing that you could say. Instead of saying I'm not smart enough, go, well, hey, you dummy, it's not about being smart. It's about the work. Make this yours. If you can make it funny, fantastic, because then that cuts the seriousness that so many of us bring to trying to change our lives. This can be fun, you know. Instead of thinking I'm not good enough, I love this one. How about I'm doing the best I can? Or I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm exactly where I need to be. You know, I think one of the most important things that you can do in life is you can ask for what you need. You can ask it of yourself. You can ask it of your work. You can ask it of your spouse. You can ask it of your family. You can ask it of your friends. And you should. Because when you ask for what you need, you are honoring what's true for you. Now, here's the interesting thing. You might not get it. And getting what you are asking for, it's not the point. When you have the courage to stop listening to those limiting default beliefs and start asking of yourself and asking of the people around you the things that you need, what you're doing in the asking is you are honoring the best part of you. And whatever it is that you receive, trust me, you need this right now because you're learning something in it. There is no experience in your life that is wasted. And so I know that many of you, because I've been reading the comments every single day, so has every member of our team, I know that so many of you are feeling at a very low point. I know you're feeling beaten down. I want to tell you something. There is something to learn in this. And one of the places that you can start is, instead of thinking about how miserable things are, and instead of thinking about how broken you feel, I want you to think about how much you've survived. I want you to think about the fact that even though you may feel broken and you may feel scared and you may feel completely overwhelmed, that in order to get beyond this, you got to understand that the world and your future are not broken and overwhelming. In fact, they are there to help you make the changes that you need. I truly believe this. I truly believe this. And so again, today, you're going to continue what you were doing yesterday, because guess what? Now that I've opened Pandora's box and you understand there's a default mode and there's a deliberate mode to the way that you think, and now that you've spent a day looking at how your default thoughts kind of stink and they make you feel bad, and you realize, wow, I could change through deliberate thinking the way that I talk to myself, this is something you're going to practice for the rest of your life. This is not a one and done. This is not an event. This is a practice. This is a process, and this is a skill. And so here's what I want you to do today. I want you to write down what is in the comments, what is your limiting belief, and what is it that you're going to think deliberately when that limiting belief comes up. So for me, when the belief comes up, nobody likes me, that's the default mode. The deliberate thing I'm going to think is the right people love me. The other one that I have is I'm constantly worried that I'm disappointing somebody. Constantly. And so when I'm worried and I feel that spidey sense come up, that tingly thing that's in your body, like, uh-oh, am I disappointing that person? Am I disappointing that person? Instead of thinking that, I'm going to think the only person I have to worry about not disappointing is me, because I'm the only person that I'm in control of anyway. In fact, I just had a big conversation with my daughter about this, about how we get so wrapped up in our lives about making sure other people are okay. And so we aren't direct, we hide information, we worry about things. And the easiest way to live your life is to just speak plainly about what's true for you. What did I just say earlier? Ask for what you need. And that also includes telling the truth about what you're thinking, about what you're doing, about who you're spending your time with. Because the minute that you're hiding information, you're kind of managing stuff with people, you're now in the default mode because you're managing disappointing people. You're managing whether or not people like you. You're thinking that you're not good enough, so you're lying and hiding information. That's how the default mode and all these negative thinkings start to creep in and make you do things that you know you shouldn't be doing. But it starts with your thinking. If you change how you think, you will change your life. Mandy, is there anything else that I should be adding in this? In the email and in the body copy on Facebook and YouTube, we will give you examples for think this, not that, but you can create your own. You're too old, you got plenty of time. You're not good enough, you're going to try. Or, oh yeah, watch me. Or I don't believe you. You can come up with anything as long as it empowers you and it's deliberate. And so it's important for you today to write down your limiting beliefs. And then I want you to go through the process, and you can do this in the comments. What is the thing that you're going to think deliberately today? What are you going to choose to say to yourself when your attitude starts circling the drain? And instead of flushing your thoughts down the toilet and the rest of the day with it, no, I'm not going to go down the default network. I'm going to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 make a decision. And I'm going to be deliberate about what I think about today. What are the simple things that you can do in order to establish some new habits so that you bring the small discipline that you need, the micro moves that actually make your biggest dreams come true? And for those of you that have been following me for a while, some of this will be a refresher, some of this will be new. This week is all about how you change the small things in your day-to-day life, hacks, tools, small habits that will help you stay on track. And the thing is that these are habits that whenever I'm not cranking, when I'm not cooking with fire, when I feel like I'm going off track, guarantee, every time I feel that way, I have dropped these small habits out of my own life. And so it's important for everybody to get a refresher. So let me tell you what we're going to do this week. This week, tomorrow, Tuesday, you're going to get an email with a link to, is it a document?
It's a template.
To a template that you can print out that is a list of all my favorite hacks. Every one of them. All the things that help me stay on track. All the things that are mindset tricks. All of the stuff that I do whenever I feel like I'm going off course. All of the little promises that when I keep them, my life works out. And the other assignment for this week is you're going to turn to page 33 in your workbook. This is where week 4 kicks off. And guess what it looks like? Exactly what the other days look like. Why? Because we're training you around the importance of dreaming big. We're teaching you the skill of being able to imagine what's not possible and to fight your limiting belief and your self-doubt as you start to shrink it. And so you're going to continue to write down your 5 big dreams. And interesting thing, since we started doing this at the beginning of January, 4 of my dreams have stayed the same. But by writing it down every single day, I'm getting more and more clarity around the next chapter of the business that I want to build, because I am forcing myself to dream big. I'm forcing myself to write about it every day. And there are some days that I've written it down. I'm like, that's not really specific. Oh, that doesn't really feel right. Oh, there's something off about it. And in the practice of just opening this up and writing your 5 dreams down every day, something interesting is happening in my mind. I am noticing my own limiting beliefs, my own self-doubt, my own shitty excuses starting to melt away. And I'm seeing my mind go, well, why didn't you write it even bigger? Why not dream bigger? Why not, Mel? And I am starting to see a breakthrough for myself in my ability to write down things that feel impossible right now and really feel grounded in the desire to want to achieve them. The other thing you've got down here are places for notes. And, I have insights every day as I'm doing this program. One of them I've already shared with you, that if I want to get to the next level in terms of the kind of company I want to create, there is a dream team of advisors that I need to surround myself with. Very big insight. I'm sure you're having the same one. I'm also noticing that not drinking the month of January, I had a beer like a week ago. I wasn't cheating. I literally was like, I'm just going to have a beer. Other than that, not drinking has been huge for me. Exercising every morning, except for last week when I was deathly ill, has been enormous for me. And I also am realizing that I'm on the move so much and I'm creating so much because I host this talk show that I need more quiet time that is intentional quiet time. I'm not talking about quiet time while I'm commuting. I'm talking about taking time to sit down, to quiet the noise, and to tune into what my intuition is telling me. So, as a preview to the long list of hacks and tools that you're going to get tomorrow that are free, I want to walk you through something that we're sending you today. So, this is the 5-second journal. We created this a year and a half ago. I'm super proud of this. We put a ton of energy and effort and thought into this journal. For the price, it's $30, which means on Amazon it's probably closer to $21. This thing is so valuable. Look at how thick this is, first of all. Secondly, it's designed so that it can fold back on itself and lie flat. It fits in a purse, a backpack. It's not branded with all kinds of crap on it, so you're not going to be embarrassed if you pull it out of a business meeting. And this is the science-backed journaling method that I use. Now, I want to be very clear. Don't buy this. You do not need to buy this. The reason why you don't need to buy this, because I promised you I'm not trying to jam anything down your throat, is because today we are sending you an email with a link to a free template that you can download. It is a template of the inside of this page, and you can see that I have filled it out today. This is the journaling method that I developed, that people around the world are using, that is based in science that and research that we have pulled from Harvard Business School, from the University of Delaware, from the University of Florida, from Caltech. It leverages things like the progress principle and the Zeigarnik effect. These are all very fancy words that means there are small things that you can do to tweak your mind and boost your productivity and take control. So today, for example, you start off with the fuel gauge, which is you measuring your energy. I circled middle of the range, which is like meh. And then you go over here and say, well, why do you feel this way? Well, I've got some big news that's hitting this week, and I have no idea how it's going to play out. So that makes me feel uncertain. Kobe's death has certainly stirred a bunch of stuff inside of me personally and as a parent. And people around me right now are stressed. And as you've learned in this course, energy is contagious. And so that's why I woke up today and my energy was like, meh. So the reason why you assess your energy is because if you boost your energy first thing, it impacts your productivity all day. And so to feel more energized, what can I do? Because if you wake up feeling, you're going to feel out of control. Well, there's things I can do. I can take time for myself today. I can listen to music. I can call somebody that makes me laugh. All things that will boost my energy immediately. In fact, just scheduling in the time ahead today to do those things will boost my energy immediately. That's important because it snaps my mind back in focus despite what's going on around me and helps me take control of my day. Then we jump down here to the Harvard Business School section and the progress principle. Today, my top project is staying optimistic. Now notice, it's not something physical that I'm doing. It's something mental that I'm doing. Why is staying optimistic important to me? This matters to me because my mindset is something I can control despite what's going on around me. The post we put up on social media today is all about optimism. Optimism isn't just throwing your hands in the air and creating and brushing everything with a positive lens. Optimism is telling yourself that regardless of what's happening around you, you can impact the outcome based on your attitude and your effort. And I believe that. I truly believe that. One small action I can take to move forward and be more optimistic: breathe, journal. When I feel myself stressing out, take a deep breath and remind myself that regardless of what happens, I will move forward. That it's not an ending, it's not a beginning, it's always a continuation in life, always. Why does this matter to me? Or other thoughts? Well, that energy is contagious, and to really keep my force field up this week.
because people are so stressed. And today, I'm grateful for my family. If there's nothing else that Kobe's tragic death and his daughter and the other family should remind you of, is that life is fucking fragile. And if you're feeling it today, make sure that you double down on expressing your love and your gratitude for the people who are in your life that mean something to you.
It's the new year. It's January. As we're recording, this is early January. This episode will come out next week. And there's a lot of people that are setting New Year's resolutions right now. There's a lot of people trying to change their habits. And a lot of people have this idea that all they need to do is get motivated to start, and then they'll be able to achieve their goals. And I know you don't agree with that. So why?
Let me frame it this way. You just said that, all these folks are starting the new year, right? And they are setting goals and they're trying to change habits, and that all they need in order to make this stick is motivation. And, here's the thing that I want to say. Number one, there are two kinds of motivation. There is intrinsic, the internal motivation, and extrinsic, the motivation that comes from outside of you. And I think, number one, most of us don't understand what type of motivation we're talking about when we say we just need motivation. You see, extrinsic motivation works every time. If I were screaming at you, you'd be very motivated to either get out of the room that I were in or to do what I say and comply. That is extrinsic motivation. If the police are chasing you, you will be motivated to run away from them, most likely. That is extrinsic motivation, right? If you have a child who falls into a swimming pool, you will be motivated to jump into that swimming pool to save them. That is extrinsic motivation. It is an outside event hitting you like a lightning bolt and shocking you into motion, either because you care about something that's happening, like your child in a swimming pool, or you're scared, and so your instinct is to run or freeze, or because you are forced to by somebody like me screaming at you. So extrinsic motivation works all the time. The trouble that we all get into is that we think that intrinsic, internal motivation, the desire and the energy and the effort required to break a habit, to learn a new one, and to create new skills and practice new skills in your life. The mistake that you are making is thinking that that energy, that desire, and that output is somehow going to magically appear. And I am here to tell you, internal motivation does not exist when you need it. You felt the amount of motivation internally that you're going to feel all year when you wrote down your goals. Okay? You felt the internal motivation, you had the desire, you took the action, you wrote down the goals. Great. But that's not going to get you to change the behavior. And so I want everybody to wake the fuck up and realize that you're not going to feel like doing what you need to do to change your life. That if you want to change your life, it requires effort, it requires consistency, and it also requires something most of us don't talk about in the personal development space when it comes to changing habits, and that is fucking compassion for yourself. You have had the same shitty self-talk for decades. You are not going to change it in one day. You have hit the snooze alarm every morning for the last 10 years. You are not going to break that habit overnight. You have been feeding your sadness with carbohydrates since you were 8 years old. You are not going to break that habit with one healthy meal. And so one of the most important aspects of changing your life is, number one, you got to realize you're always going to need to force yourself, push yourself to do what you don't feel like doing. That's number one. Number two, you're going to have to repeat that over and over and over and over and over again. What the research says is it takes 21 days of consistent effort to break the old pattern, but you need to repeat the 21 days 3 times in order to have the chemical, neurological, physiological loop lock into your mind, body, and spirit to make it part of your new default wiring. And so you got to understand, we're talking 66 days before it becomes kind of second nature. And finally, when you have a bad day and you stuff a potato chip in your mouth because you feel sad, or you scream at your kids because you get triggered, or you down an entire bottle of wine when you said you were going to do dry January, you must practice self-compassion. Because the major mistake that I see people making, Doug, is number one, they're waiting around to feel like it. And number two, the second that they do one bad day or they make one mistake, you chuck all your positive progress out the window and you go back to the way that you always used to do things. And one of the greatest skills ever is to go, okay, I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I forgive myself. And today I'm going to do a little better. That's
Right.
it.
And I'm so glad that you brought all that up and you unpacked it the way that you did, because you're right. There's so many people that have been caught in these negative habit loops for their entire life, and they think that all of a sudden they're going to wake up January 1st and everything's going to be completely different. They're going to be able to unwind the bad habits that they've been practicing for 10, 20, 30 years in a matter of days, matter of hours, matter of weeks.
You are like a puppy. And this is why it's so hard to accept the truth. And you want to know something crazy? So right before I came up here to talk to you about habits, honest to goodness, you know what I was doing? I was standing in my kitchen with my family of 5, and we were in the middle of a dog training session. I'm not making this up. We have a 3-year-old Australian Shepherd named Yolo and a 5-month-old puppy named Homie. And Homie needs new habits. Homie is not going to go from being a puppy to a beautifully trained dog without us training him. You are the same way as Homie. Right now, there are areas of your life where you're doing whatever the hell you want to do, just like my puppy is. And you and I are going to go back to obedience school, back to the basics. That's what habits are about. And as I was sitting there watching this training session with our 2 dogs, I'm thinking, holy smokes, it really is this simple. So I had this epiphany, and I just turned to Caroline Edgar from Grateful Dogs, and I said, would you be willing to come upstairs with me? Because I'm about to do something about habits, and you training these dogs is making me realize everything I was about to say to the humans is the exact same thing that you do to the dogs. And so she came up here. So here I am talking with Caroline. So I am so blown away right now that I kidnapped Caroline from our family dog training session. And she's like, wait, what? You're going to put me on the podcast? You could have given me some warning, Mel. I'm just so blown away by how training dogs, or at least how you train new behaviors in dogs, is the exact same steps, sequence, and science in how human beings learn new habits and behaviors.
Right. I often have people say, can I train my husband this way? And I'm like, yeah, you actually can.
With a clicker?
Right? Positive reinforcement. Just reinforce what you like.
There it is right there. Reinforce what you like. Learning new habits is dead simple. And let's just stay on this puppy analogy for a minute before we jump into all the big science, right? How do you make it a habit for a puppy to sit? I mean, it doesn't just automatically sit. You have to train the puppy to do a new pattern. So let's stop and think about this, because it's the exact same way you train yourself to do any new habit. First of all, you have to identify the thing that you want to do. And for me, with our puppy Homie, when I say the word sit, I want him to put his butt on the ground. The second thing that you need to do is identify a treat. What's your milk bone? Because that dog is not going to sit on the ground unless I reward him for doing what I want him to do. And finally, you got to think about what is the command or the physical thing that you're going to do that will trigger this positive new behavior pattern. That's it. That's how you teach a dog to sit. You come up with the command, which is basically a trigger or a cue that is signaling, okay, Time to put your butt on the ground. That's the behavior pattern. And then you give them a milk bone, a reward. And the more that you repeat this and the more you reward the dog for doing what you want it to do, guess what? The faster it becomes a habit. I am really serious about this. Because remember, I said there are two things that are getting in the way of you taking this very well-documented research that you need to cue the new behavior, you need to do the new behavior, then you need to reward the new behavior. And the thing that's getting in your way of just doing this is that you got a lot of emotions and opinions about the things you need to do. And so you think it's complicated to work on your business, and so you don't do it. Or you're like, I don't feel like going to the gym. It's not that complicated. It's actually simple. It's like training a puppy. Thank God our puppy homie can't talk, because I'm sure if he could, he'd be like you and I are, but I don't feel like sitting down right now, but I don't want to. No, let's make this as simple as training a puppy. And I'm doing this not because this is kind of funny, ha ha ha. I'm doing this because this is actually what the research says. The research is as plain as day. You need three things. You need to cue the new behavior. You need the behavior pattern that you want to repeat, and you need to reward the behavior. That's it. That's what Dr. Wendy Wood says, and this is what every book on the planet is teaching you, and this is what the science says. There is a 3-step process, and this 3-step process is critical. And so on the episode today, we are going to go step by step by step through all 3 steps until you get this. You get this in your being. Because these 3 steps are how you go from a life of hitting the snooze alarm 4 times to a life where you have a rock solid morning routine. You have to think about the new behavior, how you're going to trigger that, and what the reward is going to be. That's it. That's it. So let's start with part 1. That is the cue. You'll also hear this called the trigger. You'll hear this called the signal, the command, whatever you want to call it is fine with me. This is just the thing that is signaling that it is time to do the new behavior. And I'm going to stick with the example of the puppy because I really want you to get that this is all there is to habits. We can layer on all the emotion and all the opinions about it, but it boils down to these 3 things. So part 1, if I want to teach the puppy this new behavior of learning how to sit, the cue is very simple. You say the word sit. Another thing that I could do is I could raise my hand in the air silently. Simple, right? That's how you teach a dog to sit. You got to cue the behavior. Otherwise, it doesn't know that it wants me to do it. Simple. Same with you. You got to trigger any new habit. Part number 2, the new behavior. So the new behavior is literally, I want our dog to make it a habit to put his rear end on the floor when I either raise my fist or I say sit. That's it. And so I can do that one of 2 ways. I can either take a treat and lift it up towards its nose in the sky, and then as he lifts his nose up, his rear end will naturally sit down. Or as I say the word sit, I can gently help him put his rear end on the floor. There's part 2, the behavior pattern. Part 3, and this is essential because this is what makes the behavior automatic. This is the part that locks it into your brain and encodes it. You have to treat the behavior immediately. Immediately. Now, for a dog, what I learned downstairs in the kitchen this morning is that you have to do it within seconds. Literally within seconds. With you and me, we're going to dig into this, more deeply when we really unpack rewards, is you and I, based on the research, we have to reward ourselves within 2 minutes of finishing the new behavior. And the treat really, really matters because what's happening when you do this is you're associating in the brain the cue or the word sit with a milk bone. That's what's happening. This is going to become a habit in my dog to sit when he hears the word sit, not because he hears the word sit, but because the second he hears it, he starts thinking about the reward. That's why this works. That's how this encodes in the brain. The reward is critical. And here's what we do as human beings. We get so emotional about this stuff that we focus on the thing we're supposed to do. Why can't I just journal? Why can't I stop eating bread? Why is it that I always put myself last? Why can't I just be consistent with this thing? And you're missing the two most important parts. It's not about the journaling, everybody. It's about getting smart about this 3-part system. How you're going to trigger the positive behavior of journaling every single morning. And what reward are you going to give yourself within 2 minutes of finishing it? What's your milk bone? This is why habits matter, because you and I are busy setting goals and wanting to change behavior, but we're only focusing on behavior and we're not thinking about the science. See, you're not dumb, you're not stupid, you're not any less capable. You just need to simplify this and really focus on how you cue new behavior in yourself. And more importantly, how are you going to reward this? I promised you that I am going to make this habit research as simple and as effortless as a cup of coffee so that you don't think about it, so that you just sit down and you journal. Because guess what? You're the kind of person that does that because it's a habit. Now what I want to do is drill down even more on the cue, how you're going to trigger behavior, and the reward. And let's focus on what this means for human beings, okay? And so let's start with the cue, or what a lot of researchers call the trigger for new behavior. Anytime you hear somebody talk about a trigger, whether it's habit research or trauma or whatever, a trigger is something that signals to your brain that it's time for you to engage in this pattern of behavior. And honestly, there's already a lot of behavior in your life that is being triggered and you don't even realize it. If you're the kind of person, for example, that makes a cup of coffee every morning without even thinking about it, the morning is triggering a cup of coffee. The morning is triggering this habit of making a cup of coffee. If you're like I used to be, it's 6 o'clock, time to have a glass of wine. 6 o'clock is triggering a cup of coffee. And when you think about your own behavior change, there are 6 types of triggers that are right now triggering behavior in you and that you can think about using proactively when you identify the new habits that you want to create. So the first trigger is sound. Now, obviously, I just talked about this with YOLO and Homie, but the word sit, boom, that can trigger the action of sitting on the ground. A whistle can trigger the action of a dog coming to you. But it's also true for you. You know that sound that you hear when you turn on Netflix? Dun, 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 right? And it makes you go like, ooh, okay, and you settle in. That's a sound trigger. They're literally creating an association with that sound with a positive feeling of sitting on that couch for a couple hours and zoning out. You're ready for TV. Time of day. I've already talked about this. Time of day is a humongous trigger. So the morning triggers you to do a certain number of things. The evening triggers you to do things like have a glass of wine or start making dinner. A third trigger for behavior is location. Location, location, location. You know, it's very easy to stick to your habits when you're in your own home because your home, where you live, it triggers a certain routine. When you go visit somebody, when you go to your parents' house, when you're off on vacation, isn't it interesting that within 3 or 4 days, you just feel off? Your routine is off. You're itching to get back home. Well, the reason why is because that location that you're now in is different than the location that triggers your old routine. You don't feel like exercising because you're at your mother's house. And another thing is like, you know, sometimes you can be at your house and it's almost like it's like sucks you in and you don't feel motivated to work on your book or to do whatever, or to jump on an online class. But boy, you feel different when you walk into a different location, don't you? Like a gym. Another trigger is an emotional state. A lot of you are writing to me about how you have goals of becoming a healthier eater this year. And you're probably aware that your emotions of sadness or boredom or feeling tired, that emotion is triggering you to make you reach for something. You know, when I'm frustrated, for example, that emotion, it triggers a habit I don't like, which is snapping at my kids. And I also learned today in the dog training class, check this out. This is true for dogs too. There's a difference between the skills you're learning and the emotional state you're trying to master. And believe it or not, your pets have emotional states that interfere with their ability to access the skills that they're learning. So just like you get emotional and the wheels go off, the same thing happens with your pets. That's why even though I'm trying to train my dog YOLO to be quiet when people arrive, that's a new habit we're working on. When he gets like really overwhelmed, he just starts barking. And so your emotions are huge triggers. Right now, they're huge triggers probably for bad habits, but we can start to use that trigger of emotion to develop new habits. And finally, the fifth one is other people that you're around. I know that your circle matters, but I want you to just think about how much this matters. Let's say you are somebody that wants to exercise every single day. That's a huge thing for people, right? Or I even got a better one. Let's say that you're somebody who really wants to make it a habit to be more organized this year. Tell me, does a person who is living with roommates who are complete and utter slobs, we're talking days of dishes in the sink, coats strewn all over the main area of the apartment. Their stuff is everywhere. The bathroom's disgusting. Now think about a person that lives with roommates who are OCD clean. Who do you think is going to have an easier time making a habit of staying organized? That's right, the person that's surrounded by people who support that change. And the final trigger are things in your environment. So, for example, I love Post-it notes because Post-it notes can be a trigger for a positive habit. And I can give you an example. Mr. Noodle, our cat, when he gets upset or angry or gets locked out of his room, he likes to go into this bathroom upstairs and pee in the corner. It's disgusting, I know. But he's mad at me. So he has this bad habit of doing this and acting out. When the door is closed, he can't do it. Nobody's going to remember to close the door. So I put a little trigger in the environment, a Post-it note that says keep the door closed, because I'm trying to signal a new habit in everybody around here in closing the door. Now, I love triggers and I love focusing on triggers because triggers and thinking about how do I cue this behavior? How do I make it easier for myself? How do I make the thing that I'm supposed to do obvious, like that Post-it note that says close the door? When you focus on triggers, you can now hack habits. And this is such an enormous topic with so many tools and takeaways that we're going to dedicate the next episode in this series to the science of hacking habits and using triggers to make habits easier and obvious, okay? And there's a lot of this in that free worksheet, melrobbins.com/habits, that will help you figure out triggers, both positive and negative. But the bottom line is no trigger, no habit. No cue, no habit. And by the way, triggers are why bad habits are so hard to break. And here's why. Let's say that, like me, maybe you're participating in a month of not drinking, okay? We can't get rid of 6 p.m. at night. If you have a habit of pouring a glass of wine every night at 6 p.m., 6 p.m. ain't going away. And so you need to know that when 6 p.m. rolls around, when that sun goes down, when that clock strikes 6, guess what's going to happen? You are going to be triggered to repeat your old habit. Because what does a habit have? It has a trigger, it has a behavior, drink that glass of wine, and then it has a reward. Ah, that feels good. You can't get rid of 6 p.m., which is why when it comes to replacing behavior, you have to anticipate the trigger and replace the behavior. Here's another one. When somebody starts cooking dinner, don't you feel hungry? Or when somebody starts making a snack in the kitchen, don't you feel like you want a snack? Me too. We cannot take away the things that trigger our current habits. You're never going to get over the fact that an alarm's going to go off in the morning. New habits allow you to change your response to existing triggers. That's where this gets exciting. And the other thing that's exciting about triggers and why we're going to dedicate the entire next episode around it is because when you get proactive about creating triggers, Post-it notes, visual cues, surrounding yourself with the right people, now you're using triggers to your advantage. I got a trigger. I'm about to tell you, we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors. I bet there's something you do automatically. Don't skip the ads. Let's have a new behavior. They're supporting the show because we're going to be right back. And when we return, I got a great reward for you. We're going to jump deep into that third part of all behavior change, and that is the reward and how you use it and what researchers say about it so that you lock in these new habits. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here with me. We just talked about the 3 parts of a habit, which are the cue or trigger, the behavior you need to repeat, and the reward. And as promised, now we're going to go deep into this third essential part, and that is the reward. You have to have a reward. The research is so clear on this, and this goes not only for human beings, but also for puppies. Here's what our trainer from Grateful Heart had to say about the importance of a reward. So, Caroline, is it possible to teach a dog a new behavior without a reward?
No. There's got to be a reward of some kind. So it doesn't need to be food. It could be personal play. It could be, it can even be the environment. It could even be something as much as if they check in with me, you can say, free, you're off leash, run through the field, have fun, Environmental rewards, go sniff. Often I use that with my dogs. Like they come in and they check in with me and I'm like, yeah, go get it.
This is essential. Let's just take the puppy. When you repeat the command, right? So you've got this trigger, down, which means lie down. And your dog does it, and then you hand them a milk bone, you are fusing the command, the trigger, down with the reward. And that's how the behavior becomes automatic. That's it. Now look, for you, I don't want you eating a milk bone. That's not the reward. And for some habits, it's easier to lock them in place because there's an innate reward. So for example, brushing your teeth. That's a very easy habit to get into. Why? Because the reward is that your mouth doesn't feel like it's got shag carpeting on it anymore. Or using dryer sheets. Why is that easy to kind of remember to do? Well, because it's a really nice reward when you pull things out of the dryer and you don't get an electric shock. Or when you buy things. This is why some bad habits are very easy to learn. When you buy something, the reward is both the thrill of the purchase, and if you bought it online, you get a second reward because the new thing arrives at your door. This also explains why coffee, alcohol, things that we kind of get addicted to, they're pretty potent habits, aren't they? Because the reward is the second that you sip it, you feel good. The reward is innate. But for other habits, you have to add an external reward, okay? Because the reward is what gives you a bit of dopamine. When my puppy gets the milk bone, or it gets a pat on the head, or it gets a little tug of war play, it gets a reward of dopamine. That motivation and drive chemical is what locks in the behavior is automatic. It creates what researchers call a habit loop. So when you text a friend a photo after you finish something and they text you back, boom, dopamine. That's why you make it a habit to text your friends, because it feels good when they text back. When you have a little piece of chocolate, I have one every day right around 2 o'clock. It's a little bit of a habit. I feel the 2 o'clock strike. Boom. Where's my chocolate? Boom. The dopamine hits. That's my reward. It's a habit. When you watch a funny video, why do we waste so much time watching funny memes and TikToks? Because every time that you laugh, dopamine, you get a reward. That's why you keep strolling, by the way, because you might just get another reward. You keep seeking out the behavior. This is why the reward is so important. And most of us are just kind of hoping we feel better. You need to hack behavior change by thinking about what is your milk bone going to be? And let me use a very common habit that people want to lock into place to explain this: exercising more. So for some of you, maybe this is you, simply the thrill of the post-workout endorphin, it's enough of a reward. Not for me. I'm going to tell you a story about me trying to create a habit of exercising 5 days a week and why the reward was the only reason why it happened. Okay. So this was in 2019. I was a brand new TV talk show host, and I was living during the week in a hotel in New York City as we were taping this show. And it was really important to me because this job was super stressful that I figured out how to get exercise in every single day. Now, here's the rub. The job of being a TV host required me to be at the CBS Broadcast Center by 7 o'clock in the morning. And most nights I worked until at least 7 o'clock at night. So I knew that I was not going to have the energy to exercise at night. And I also knew that if I was going to actually make it to that studio by 7 o'clock every morning, ready to go, ready to work, ready to tape a TV show, I had to be exercising by 5:30 in the morning. I don't know about you, but I am not the kind of person that loves to just spring right out of bed. I am not like my husband. I do not roll right out of bed. And so the thought of getting out of bed and being in my exercise tights and standing in an exercise class at 5:30 in the morning, this is a whole new Mel Robbins. And I also know myself well enough to know that there was no way in hell I was going to get myself down to a gym in the hotel and motivate myself at that hour, that I actually needed a class where somebody was going to be yelling at me if I planned on moving and exercising. And so that means that I not only needed to be up at 5:30 in that class, I had to be up at like 5 o'clock in the morning in order to get dressed, leave the hotel, get to a class that was actually happening somewhere in New York City at 5:30 in the morning. And so I knew that if I was going to do that, there were certain triggers that I needed to do. Okay, so I have a problem. I want to exercise. I want to be the kind of person that exercises every day. So how do I make it a habit to do this when I am not that person? I am not the person that wants to get out of bed. My habits say I sleep in. My habits say I'm too tired. My habits say that's way too early. How do I become that person? Well, how you become that person is you use the 3 steps we've been talking about. You need a trigger and you need the reward. The behavior part, that's easy to identify. Get your ass to the gym. What is the trigger? Well, I came up with 2. Trigger number 1 was I would sign up for a class the night before. I would sign up because I was committed to doing this for my mental health and so that I would perform at the highest level in this new job. So that's number 1. I'd sign up ahead of time because then I'd felt a sense of obligation. The second thing that I would do is I would lay out my clothes on the floor, just like, your mom might have done when you were a little kid. I would lay out the clothes the night before so that the second I woke up and I thought, ugh, I would see those clothes, and those clothes were a trigger to get out of bed. Because for me, I'm not the kind of person like my husband. When that alarm goes off at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm not rolling out of bed and going, I know when I'm done with this, I'm going to feel better, so I'm going to go. No, I complicate things. I'm overwhelmed. I'm dramatic. I don't feel like it. But as I lean over to turn off the alarm alone in my hotel room at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I don't feel like exercising and it's pitch black, there, like a giant middle finger on the floor from the future Mel Robbins, are my exercise clothes laying on the floor. That, my friend, is a trigger. Another cue is that since I have registered for the class, there is a text in my phone from the class reminding me that I registered. Another giant middle finger from the future Mel Robbins. That's the trigger. That's cueing the behavior. Get your ass out of bed, pull those tights on, get your coat on, get your sneakers on, and walk those 10 blocks to that exercise class, woman. Because you are the kind of person that exercises in the morning, even though you don't feel like it. Now, this is where the reward comes in. This is where things get really interesting, and this is where the neuroscience kicks in. So, I've explained a quick trigger, the clothes on the floor and registering the night before. The reward is essential. So, the very first morning that I went to this exercise class, I got there very proud of myself, but knowing I'd be proud of myself, not enough of an award for Mel Robbins, okay? After the exercise class, so now it's 6:30 in the morning, I am walking back to the hotel, and there is a coffee shop. And I walk in. And it's not just any coffee shop. It's one of those like New York City coffee shops, that's like, it looks like an IKEA store. It's very sterile and it's got basically all white walls and a giant espresso machine that looks like an aircraft carrier. And the person that's making the coffee, clearly from Brooklyn because he has a beard and he's got one of those aprons on that have the leather straps to it. And you just know this is going to be the best damn cup of coffee you've ever had. And then right next to it, oh my God, there was a pile of breakfast burritos. They were about the size of, I'm trying to think about what size this would be. A little bit bigger than a man's wallet. And they were wrapped in foil. And they had been made by somebody who probably doesn't even have a commercial kitchen license because they were made by a woman that drops them off. And they just looked like homemade amazingness, the kind of thing that comes from somebody that they make them with love. They're not making 50,000 burritos, they're making 50. And they're dropping them off right there. So I bought this burrito and I leave this coffee shop and I unfold the burrito and it's dripping down my hand. And I go and I take a bite and it is one of those burritos that is like that moist, gummy feeling on the flour tortilla because it's been steamed and the cheese is melted with the chorizo. I can't even say the sausage and the cheese. It was magic in my mouth. Just absolutely fantastic. Okay, that was my reward. I got a cup of coffee and a burrito. Enough with the burrito, Mel. No, actually, the burrito matters. The burrito matters more than anything because let me tell you what happened the very next morning. The very next morning, the alarm rings. There are my tights on the floor like a middle finger, and there is the text. Triggers, get out of bed. But you know what my mind immediately thought of? The burrito. The burrito was my milk bone. The burrito fused this new habit in my brain. The reward is everything. I'm telling you, the reward is everything. It's the milk bone of habits. Because what happens in the science with a habit loop is that when you can find a reward that really makes you feel good, that you feel a sense of accomplishment, the way your brain works is that the habit loop forms by associating the trigger, which is the tights on the floor, with the reward. You don't even think about the exercise. Just like my dog doesn't even think about sitting, doesn't even think about running to me when I yell his name and I say, come. He's thinking about the milk bone. And so this is the science that makes it easy. I told you I was going to make this so simple that a dog would understand. And I also told you that I was going to make this so easy that you can apply it immediately, that you would be able to figure out how to create behavior change in your life that is as effortless as making a cup of coffee every single morning. And I'm going to tell you something. It took me about 4 to 5 mornings before that alarm went off, and I didn't look at those tights like it was a middle finger saying, you're going to have to exercise, Mel. It took me 4 or 5 mornings before I looked at those tights and I was like, oh yeah, it's burrito time, bitches. Let's go. Oh, I got to stop by this stupid exercise class first. But this is such powerful science. And what's also interesting about the neuroscience here is that you know what I was thinking about as I was exercising? I wasn't thinking about the fact that my butt cheeks were shaking or that I hated being there or that I was sweating in inappropriate places and my tights were too light of a color. No, I was thinking about that coffee shop that looked like a Kia, that espresso machine that was the size of a New York City bus, and the gooey, chewy, amazing burrito that I was going to have when I was done exercising. That's what I was thinking about. So whatever new habit you have, whether you just want to drink more water with your meals, or you want to spend more time working on your goals, or you want to feel more organized, you have to take time to think about not only the trigger, but what is a reward that really matters to you. And this is so important because positive reinforcement is what we're talking about. And I'm willing to bet any area of your life where you're trying to make a behavior change stick, you have no reward. Or worse, you're punishing yourself. You're saying, I'm not doing enough. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just sit down and write? Why can't I get my bills paid? Why can't I do this? That's negative reinforcement. And just like with a puppy, this is going to backfire on you. So I want to bring Caroline from Grateful Dogs back to the conversation, because I asked her about this. Like, what happens if you don't give a puppy a milk bone? What happens if you do what I often see people doing, whereas they like call a dog to them and then, beat it or yell at it or, scream at it? What happens when you don't do positive reinforcement? Check this out. Can you describe what happens to a dog if they're getting negative reinforcement? They're getting hit, they're getting yelled at, they're getting put in a cage, they're getting just a yank on the leash.
Mm-hmm. So they're getting suppressed. So I always think of it as, the kids in school where they're like, oh, I know. And then they are either made fun of, or they get the wrong answer. They're made to feel badly. They're no longer offering that, right? Very quickly, we teach kids to just kind of suck it up. And the same thing happens with animals. So animals that have been suppressed in some way, whether, positive punishment or too much management, depending on the animal, right? Because some animals are very resilient and can find other ways of expressing themselves, but often you get what's called learned helplessness, where they just go through not knowing what to do, so they stop doing everything altogether. So, and often you'll also get, it'll morph into something else. So if the dog goes charging to the door and we yell at them, often what you'll get, you're pairing, a negative consequence with someone walking through the door. So suddenly that person coming through the door makes everything unsafe. You're normally a pretty stable person, but when someone comes through the door, you start yelling or, grabbing the dog by the scruff, then we've created an association with that person walking through the door and negative consequences. So you'll actually get more aggression or more fear-based behaviors. And some dogs will just shut down and they're just sort of deadpan. I actually think I don't know what to do, so I won't do anything.
I think you just explained human behavior. No, I'm serious.
Closely related.
Yeah, because we often are trying hard to change.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of trying hard, we beat ourselves up internally because it wasn't enough, or we didn't do it right, or, blah, 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 which that idea of suppressing the desire to learn or the desire to try, that learned helplessness that we create in ourselves because of the way we talk to ourselves as we're doing our best. Whereas the solution's very obvious. It's rewarding the incremental positive attempts to try, which only makes you want to try more. And I know I hammer this point about you need to be kinder to yourself, but I think that it's also part of habit formation. You're never going to make it a habit to exercise if you're constantly trashing yourself for not doing it or for not doing it enough. That's not a positive reward. Why would you want to journal if at the end of it you're like, well, that was hard? You wouldn't. That's not how your brain works. That's not how training an animal works. That's not how human psychology or neuroscience works. You have to have a positive reward. And so this brings me back to you and what you're thinking about changing and how you're going to apply this simple research to making this new behavior pattern a habit, to have it go from something you're practicing and doing to evidence that you're becoming a person who runs. You're becoming a person who's organized. You're becoming a person who is a writer. You're not just journaling every day. You're a person that's very mindful and that has discipline. And I know you're now thinking, okay, Mel, I think I got it. I got the trigger and the cue. I can't wait for the next episode to go deeper in that. I got the behavior pattern and I got the fact that I got to focus on a reward. How long is this going to take before it's as easy as making a cup of coffee? So we have all been told that it takes 21 days to form a new habit, and it is complete horseshit. Okay. It's not true. And there's an important reason why. You have to understand that Habit formation is deeply personal. And it has nothing to do with you. Habit formation has way more to do with the context and surroundings and the resistance that you have to the behavior that you're trying to implement. You and I are not robots. We are human beings. And so, number one, when you miss a day, if you beat yourself up or you get impatient and you start to bail and you feel all this resistance, it's going to take a lot longer. If you've been exercising and schlepping to the gym for 21 days and you're going, why do I still hate this? Why have I been drinking the water for 34 days and I still hate this? This isn't working, Mel. This is... I want to tell you something. There was a study done in the European Journal of Social Psychology, and the study is entitled, How Are Habits Formed? The lead researcher is a professor by the name of Philippa Lally from the University College of London, and her research shows that it takes between 18 and 254 days to form a habit. And when I say form a habit, that means you do it without resistance. You do it without bitching. You do it without really thinking about it. That's how long it took people in this study to form a habit, which means they removed the resistance to it, and now it just became part of who they do, part of who they are. They take a walk every night after dinner. They always have tea in the morning. They get out of bed when the alarm rings. They take their inbox to zero every day. That's how long it took. And I want to just give you one other example because context matters. Context matters. If you wanted to get your finances in order, who is going to have an easier time making it a habit to get their finances in order? Someone that is surrounded by people that spend everything that they earn and live beyond their means and go out every night, or someone who has friends that are putting money away, that cook in, that pay their bills, that are interested in the stock market and are learning about it. When you are in an environment that is supporting the change, there's less resistance. When you have a great reward for why you're doing something, there's less resistance. When you are highly motivated to make this change and you're surrounded by supportive people, there's less resistance. When you are having a fun time doing this change, like a great reward, by the way, for exercising is do it with a friend. Because when you wake up in the morning, you won't think about the walk you're taking. You're going to think about the moment you see your friend. When you make it easier, when you make it more fun, when you think about the rewards, when it has deep meaning for you, when you surround yourself or put yourself in an environment where it's supporting the change, you'll be on the 18-day end instead of the 254-day end. That's why there's such a huge variation. And that's really good news because it means that you have the ability to use what you just learned, to focus on how am I going to trigger this behavior and make it easier? What is the behavior change that I really want to make because it makes me see myself differently? I want to be a runner. I want to be an organized person. I want to be a happier person. I want to be a musician. I want to be an entrepreneur. All of these things that you want to change, you absolutely have the ability to do it. But that behavior change is going to be dependent on you. It's dependent upon why you want to do it, how you're going to trigger yourself, what environment you're going to put yourself in, and how you're going to reward yourself every single time that you engage in the behavior. The second I stop treating my dog for sitting, you know what's going to happen? He's going to stop listening. That's what's going to happen. And I don't think that makes him a bad dog. You can pick up behavior fast. You absolutely can. Like if we go back to Sarah's question, behavior change and drastic change can happen very quickly because the change in how you see yourself can happen quickly. The resistance to doing it, to achieving the goal, that's going to take some time. And here's one other thing that Dr. Lally discovered that I think is really good news. This is amazing. Missing a day, based on the research, does not materially affect the habit formation process, period. Missing a day does not materially affect the habit formation process. So let's just say that you are trying to make it a habit to get outside and to look at bright light first thing in the morning for 10 minutes, okay? Let's say you miss 3 days. And you're like, that's it. I can't do anything. I always bail on everything I try. I'm a failure. Blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Get that stupid notion in your head that you got to do it for 21 days straight. You got to be an Ironman. You got to be a robot. You got to be a Navy SEAL. It's complete bullshit. The 15 days that you've already put in, guess what? It's already started plowing new neural pathways in your mind. You're already 15 days on the path to behavior change. You didn't lose progress. You're not back at zero. You have not impacted the habit formation process. So if you're somebody who has spent a lifetime beating yourself up, starting to change, ending the change, starting the change, ending the change, starting the change, beating yourself up, you're like that kid who doesn't want to raise their hand in class anymore. Or you're like that dog that constantly got screamed at when it did something wrong. You've made it a habit of giving up. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.